Emma Carlson, 34, moved briskly through the grocery store parking lot, her arms full of shopping bags and her mind racing with the typical after-work checklist. Feed the kids, prep tomorrow's lunches, fold laundry, return a patient's call. It was a cool Thursday evening in late October, just cold enough for a jacket, but not quite winter. The leaves had begun to pile up at the corners of the lot, swirling in little eddies each time a car passed. She was halfway to her white Honda Accord when something caught her eye. A wallet, half-tucked under the front wheel of a shopping cart. Worn brown leather, but still in decent shape. It was just sitting there, abandoned. Emma looked around instinctively, expecting someone to be doubling back for it. But the lot was mostly empty, just a few people loading groceries and a teenager collecting carts. She hesitated for a moment, then picked it up. She intended to turn it in, of course. But as she held the wallet in her hand, something about it nagged at her. A woman's wallet, judging by the sleek, feminine design and faint smell of perfume. She didn't mean to snoop, but when she opened it to check for an ID, what she saw stopped her cold. There, tucked neatly behind the license, was a photograph. And it was him, Michael, her husband, shirtless, smiling, wrapped around a younger woman in a hotel bed. The picture looked casual, even affectionate, as if snapped during a private moment of laughter. The woman was blonde, much younger than Emma, and wore nothing but a tank top. Emma's heart stuttered. Her breath caught in her throat. She blinked, hoping it was some mistake. A lookalike, maybe? But there was no doubt. It was Michael. And it wasn't just the photo. Beneath it, folded with care, was a napkin with lipstick marks and a handwritten note. Can't wait to see you again, baby. Same room next Friday? Yours always, L. Emma's fingers trembled as she flipped through the rest of the wallet. Credit cards, cash, a driver's license. Lauren Mathers, 26 years old. Emma didn't know that name, but she would never forget it now. The wind picked up, sending leaves scuttling across the pavement. But Emma didn't feel the chill. All she felt was heat, rising fast, deep in her chest. Rage, shock, and something even worse. The cracking sound of her reality splitting open. She looked back at the wallet, then to the photo again. Her marriage, her life, suddenly felt like a lie captured in glossy 4x6. And in that moment, Emma Carlson realized something terrifying. She hadn't just found a wallet. She had found a secret. One that would obliterate everything she thought she knew. Emma sat in her car, the engine still running, the bags of groceries forgotten in the trunk. Her eyes stayed locked on the photo, her knuckles white from gripping the wallet too tightly. The cheerful beeps of backing vehicles and rustling carts around her felt far away, muffled, dreamlike. Her body was frozen, but her thoughts raced like a runaway train. Why was Michael in this wallet? Who was this woman? Why did it feel like she had just discovered a stranger wearing her husband's skin? She stared at the license again. Lauren Mathers. Birth date, 1997. Address, an apartment complex downtown, not far from the hospital where Michael worked in the IT department. That fact hit her like a second punch. Michael always claimed to work long shifts, handling systems for overnight backups, emergency protocols. Emma had believed him. Why wouldn't she? They had 2 kids, shared a mortgage, and went to church together every Sunday. But now none of it made sense. She turned the wallet over in her hands and opened the zipper pocket. There were receipts dated just 3 days ago, from a gas station, a diner, and worst of all, a motel. Room 206, cash only. A scribbled note on the back of the receipt said, Friday night Red Heart. Emma's chest ached. She flipped to the next slip of paper. A torn post-it with a number on it. A burner phone? She didn't know. But the handwriting was elegant, girlish, casual, like someone who believed in fairy tales. And apparently in married men. She wanted to throw the wallet into the trash. To scream, cry, collapse. But she didn't. Emma Carlson had never been the impulsive type. She was logical, controlled. That had made her a great nurse and an even better mother. But now that discipline took on a new shape, a colder, more calculating one. She started the car and drove home, the wallet in her lap the entire way. Inside the house, things were quiet. The kids were still at her sister's. Michael was due home in 2 hours. She sat at the kitchen table, poured herself a glass of wine, and opened her laptop. She Googled Lauren Mathers. There was a Facebook profile, locked down, minimal information. But the profile picture was enough. Blonde, young, pretty. And in one of the visible tagged photos from a year ago, she saw something that made her heart skip. Michael, in the background, wearing the same checkered shirt he claimed had gone missing last fall. His face was turned, half caught in motion. But it was him, so it hadn't been a recent affair. This had been going on for at least a year. Emma felt bile rise in her throat. And then something else rose behind it, resolve. She picked up the wallet again, turned it over, and looked at the name. Lauren Mathers, her husband's mistress. The woman who, unintentionally, had just handed Emma the keys to the truth. And now, Emma was going to open every door. That night, Emma didn't sleep. She lay in bed beside Michael, pretending to be asleep, listening to the slow rhythm of his breathing. Every time he stirred, she resisted the urge to recoil. His arm brushed hers once in the early hours of morning, and she felt as if a stranger had touched her. By dawn, the decision was made. Emma was no longer simply a betrayed wife. She was a woman on a mission. The next day, after dropping the kids off at school, she called out sick from the clinic. She had no fever, no headache, just a burning obsession to know everything. She drove to the address listed on Lauren's ID, a modest apartment complex near downtown, the kind of place where secrets lived behind drawn curtains and thin walls. Emma parked across the street and waited. At 10:12 a.m., the front door of Unit 5B opened, and there she was, Lauren, in the flesh, blonde ponytail, skinny jeans, coffee in hand, laughing into her phone as she walked to her car. She looked exactly like the kind of woman who would smile as she ruined someone else's life. Emma ducked slightly, her heart racing. She expected to feel rage. Instead, she felt something colder, curiosity. Who was she, really? She followed Lauren's car from a distance. It wasn't difficult. The girl wasn't paying attention. Why would she be? People who live in lies often assume they're invisible. Lauren drove to a florist shop on Maple Avenue. She worked there, Emma guessed, as she walked in and was greeted warmly by a coworker. Emma parked 2 stores down and waited. Her hands were clenched on the steering wheel, knuckles pale. After an hour, she made a decision. Emma walked into the florist shop and scanned the arrangements. She avoided Lauren's gaze and approached the counter where an older woman stood. "Hi," Emma said casually. "I'm looking for a job. Do you happen to be hiring?" The woman smiled. "Actually, yes. Part-time. Weekdays. Experience with arrangements." "Some," Emma lied. "I'm great with details." Lauren glanced over briefly, unaware she was looking into the eyes of her lover's wife. The woman behind the counter handed Emma a paper application. "We're short-handed. You can start Monday if you'd like to shadow." "What's your name, dear?" Emma smiled, her heart thudding. "Claire." She walked out of the store a few minutes later, the application in hand and a new identity stitched together with quiet vengeance. Emma wasn't just gathering information now. She was infiltrating. She wanted to hear Lauren talk, learn her habits, maybe even hear her speak Michael's name. And if she did, Emma would decide what came next. The unraveling had begun, and it wouldn't stop until someone bled. Monday morning came, crisp and unsuspecting. Emma pulled her hair into a low bun, slipped into a plain blouse, and looked at herself in the mirror. Not as a wife, not as a mother, not as a nurse, but as Claire, the woman who would walk into her husband's mistress's life and pry it apart petal by petal. She arrived at Lilac and Thorn Floral Boutique at 9:02 a.m., just as the store was unlocking. Lauren was already inside, arranging sunflowers in a glass vase, humming softly to herself. Emma stepped through the front door, the tiny bell above it chiming like the first note in a requiem. Lauren looked up. "Hey, you must be Claire," she said brightly. Emma nodded. "Yep, first day." "The shop owner?" "Beth. greeted Emma with a warm smile and handed her an apron. Lauren will train you. She's got the best hands in the business. Emma turned to Lauren, her pulse steady. I'm in good hands then. Lauren laughed, not realizing how close she was to danger. They spent the morning side by side, cutting stems, arranging bouquets, small talk. Emma listened carefully, nodding in all the right places, asking harmless questions. She learned Lauren was single, no kids, loved red wine, hated cats, and rented her apartment with help from her very generous boyfriend. Long term, Emma asked lightly. Lauren hesitated for a beat, then smiled to herself. Something like that. It's complicated. But he's amazing. Emma didn't blink. What does he do? He works in IT. At the hospital. There it was. The confirmation. Like a knife twisting gently. Emma pretended not to react. Oh, that's cool. Must be nice to date someone stable. Lauren beamed. He's married though, she whispered suddenly. But it's not what you think. Emma leaned in slightly, playing the part. Isn't it always what we think? Lauren shook her head, suddenly serious. He's stuck. His wife doesn't see him anymore. He said it's just routine. They're roommates, not lovers. He says she'd never understand him like I do. Emma forced a tight smile. The irony felt acidic in her throat. Lauren added, I think he's going to leave her. I really do. Emma turned away and began trimming rose stems. Men say a lot of things when they're between two beds. Lauren didn't catch the meaning. By mid-afternoon, Emma knew the routine. Deliveries came at 3, Beth left early on Mondays, and Lauren always stayed behind to close the register. Alone. Emma left that day with more than a paycheck. She had a map, a schedule of vulnerability. She also now had access to Lauren's world. And most importantly, Lauren trusted her. That night, Emma sat in her bedroom with the wallet still tucked in a drawer, staring at her husband's face in that photo. She remembered the vows, the children, the lies whispered into her ear at night. But now Emma had one more thing that Lauren didn't. Plan. And just like any perfect arrangement, it would require patience, sharp tools, and knowing exactly where to cut. The following weeks unfolded like a well-rehearsed play. Every day, Emma, now Claire, worked beside Lauren at the floral shop, masking her rage behind soft smiles and polite laughter. She became her confidant. Lauren shared everything freely. The perfume Michael liked, his favorite aftershave, the silly pet names they had for each other. He calls me Bluebell, Lauren had giggled one Thursday, because I used to wear this blue sundress when we met. Emma didn't flinch. She remembered that dress. She had washed it herself. It had gone missing from their closet last spring. Lauren also talked about the sex. Too openly. Too proudly. Emma often found herself clenching her jaw behind displays of lilies and peonies. He told me I make him feel alive, Lauren had said once, arranging tulips without realizing how close she was to a very real threat. Emma said nothing, but in her mind, she replayed the comment on loop. Every shift, every conversation, every errand Lauren ran, Emma took note. She was no longer just gathering facts. She was studying Lauren's patterns, and by the third week, she had everything she needed. Where Lauren hid her spare apartment key, under the flower pot by the door. When she showered between 8 and 8:30 p.m. Where she kept her wine. Second cabinet, left side, top shelf. When Michael usually visited. Fridays after work. When Emma believed he was working late. That lie was easy to track. And even easier to sabotage. On a rainy Friday night, Emma told Michael she was taking the kids for a weekend with her mother in Asheville. He kissed her on the cheek and said, "Drive safe." By 7:15 p.m., she was parked 3 blocks from Lauren's apartment, dressed in black, hood up, gloves on. The rain was a blessing. It masked her steps, blurred the camera angles, and cleared the sidewalks. She waited until Lauren left for her usual wine run, something she always did before Michael arrived. Then Emma moved. She used the spare key, entered the apartment, and worked fast, quiet, calculated. She poured wine into 2 glasses just like Lauren would. She placed them on the table near the couch and then carefully, deliberately, removed a bottle of prescription sleeping pills from her coat. Crushed, mixed, stirred into Lauren's glass. She sat down on the couch and waited, her heart oddly calm. This wasn't panic. It was purpose. The door clicked open at 8:17 p.m. Lauren stepped inside, shaking off her umbrella. She froze when she saw Emma. Emma stood up slowly. "Don't scream," she said quietly. "I'm not here to hurt you." Lauren's mouth opened, confused, frightened. "Who? What the hell?" Emma took a step forward. "You know me. You just don't know that you know me." Then she pulled a photo from her pocket, the one she had found in the wallet. She handed it to Lauren. Lauren stared at it, recognizing the man instantly. Michael. And standing beside him in the photo, arms around his waist, smiling in a family portrait, was Emma. Lauren's face went pale. "I'm his wife," Emma said coldly. "And you're the lie he built around me." Lauren stumbled back, visibly shaking. I didn't know. He said you were separated." "That you didn't." Emma cut her off. "They always say that." Lauren reached for her phone, but Emma stepped forward again, raising her voice just enough. "You don't need to call anyone. Not yet. Not until we have a drink." She gestured toward the wine on the table. Lauren looked at it, hesitated. Emma picked up her own glass, raised it. "One toast. To the truth." Lauren, trembling, picked up hers. She drank first. Lauren swayed slightly. The wine glass clinked softly as she set it back on the table, her hands trembling. The storm outside had intensified, thunder cracking like distant warning shots. Inside, silence settled like fog between them. Emma remained still, watching, calculating, waiting. Lauren blinked slowly. What did you put in that?" Emma tilted her head, voice calm and unnervingly detached. "Just something to help you relax." Lauren's breathing grew shallow, her pupils dilating. "You drugged me?" Emma walked toward her with deliberate slowness, her boots quiet against the laminate floor. "You've taken so much from me, Lauren. My husband, my marriage, my peace. The least you could give me is clarity." Lauren opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her legs buckled, and she fell back onto the couch, her body slack, conscious but trapped, paralyzed in a nightmare of her own making. Emma sat beside her, expression unreadable. "I wasn't always like this," she said softly. "I used to believe in love, in loyalty. I even defended him when my sister said he was too charming to be faithful. Can you believe that? I told her he was just misunderstood, that no one saw his heart the way I did." She reached into her coat and pulled out Michael's wallet, the same one she'd found weeks ago. She tossed it onto the table in front of Lauren. "That's how this started." Lauren blinked heavily, her lips barely able to form sound. What do you want?" Emma smiled faintly. "I want you to tell me how long it's been going on. I want to hear it from your mouth before you black out." Lauren's voice was slurred. "Almost a year." Emma's jaw tightened. 12 months. Birthdays, holidays, school events. All while Lauren laughed behind her back and made love to her husband. She stood and walked toward the window, her thoughts spiraling like the storm clouds above. She should have left him. She should have burned the wallet the day she found it. But instead, she let it fester, let it metastasize into something colder than grief. "I was going to confront him," she said, still facing the window. "But then I thought, why should I give him the chance to lie again?" Behind her, Lauren's breathing slowed. Her head lolled to one side. Emma turned. "You took something that didn't belong to you," she whispered. "Now I take something back." She pulled a second phone from her pocket, Michael's old burner phone, the one he'd hidden in his gym bag. She had found it during her silent investigation, right next to an unopened box of condoms. She placed the phone in Lauren's limp hand, and then she staged the rest. The wine glass, the scattered pills, a note scribbled with shaking handwriting. "I can't do this anymore. I loved you, but it was never real. Emma left through the back door, unseen. By the time Michael arrived at 9:05 p.m., the storm had eased, but what he walked into was far darker than any rain-soaked night. Lauren was unconscious, the note beside her, the wine glass half empty, and in her cold hand his secret phone. Michael's heart raced as he stepped through the door. Lauren lay on the couch, the scene as chaotic as it was ominous. The empty wine glass, the note, her body limp, eyes barely open, struggling to focus. "Lauren," his voice cracked with panic. He rushed to her, shaking her gently. She groaned, her eyelids fluttering. Her hand fell open, revealing the phone Emma had placed there. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The burner phone. He froze. Lauren stirred again, barely able to speak. I'm sorry. I didn't mean." Michael's chest tightened. He grabbed the phone, his mind racing. The notes from their secret calls. The messages, everything. His lies had been discovered. He cursed under his breath and reached for his phone to call for help. But then it clicked. Emma. Everything fell into place. The perfect storm. The wallet. The phone. The betrayal. Michael felt the weight of his own deceit crashing down. He stumbled back, hand on his forehead, suddenly realizing there was no way out. The days following Lauren's collapse were a blur. Michael had called for help, but by the time paramedics arrived, Lauren had regained enough consciousness to tell them she'd simply overdone it with the wine. They believed her, assuming she had fallen into a drunken stupor after an emotional breakdown. But Emma knew better. She watched from a distance as Michael hovered around Lauren, all worried expressions and gentle touches. His facade of concern felt suffocating. Emma, however, had seen through it all. She had seen how he'd looked at her with guilt and shame when he'd finally returned home that night. His face pale, his hands trembling. He knew his secret had been exposed. Lauren would never be the same again. Not after what had happened. And neither would Michael. The phone calls became more frequent. Texts filled with apologies, promises to explain, begging for forgiveness. But Emma was resolute. She had done what she needed to do. The power had shifted. One evening, as she sat alone in her kitchen, a text from Michael flashed across her phone. "We need to talk. I know you're angry, but we can fix this. Please." Emma stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keys. He wanted to explain himself. But this wasn't about explanations. It was about control. And now, for the first time in a long while, Emma held all of it. She was no longer the woman whose world had been ripped apart. She was the one who had reshaped everything, silently and ruthlessly. She deleted his message. And then, without a second thought, she blocked his number. The days turned to weeks, and Emma's grip on her life tightened with each passing hour. Michael, now cut off from all communication, seemed to wither in the wake of his own deceit. He was a ghost in his own house, avoiding his children, avoiding Lauren, but he couldn't escape the relentless tension between them. Lauren, too, was unraveling, though in a much quieter way. She had retreated into herself, avoiding Emma at the floral shop, her face pale, her movements sluggish. The once vibrant woman was now a shell of who she had been, broken by guilt, by fear, by knowing she had been caught in a lie so deep it might swallow her whole. But there was more at play here than just the unraveling of two people. Emma watched it all from the sidelines, like a conductor orchestrating the destruction. She knew she had pushed Michael into a corner, but there was still a part of her, a small, dangerous part, that wondered if it was enough. It wasn't until a rainy Saturday night, almost a month after the confrontation, that Emma received the text she had been dreading. "We need to talk. Now, please." Michael's plea was simple, but the fear in his message was undeniable. Emma took a deep breath, her fingers trembling slightly as she composed her response. "You don't get to dictate when or how this conversation happens." She stared at the message for a long moment, allowing the silence to settle around her. The power was hers now. He had no control. But despite her resolve, something stirred deep inside her. A whisper that told her she might not be as in control as she thought. Emma's world had been shattered once. Now she realized it might be about to fall apart again. The night was thick with tension. The rain had subsided, but a cold chill lingered in the air, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Emma knew this moment was inevitable. This confrontation between her and Michael had been written in the stars ever since she found that wallet in the parking lot. But even now, as she stood facing him in the living room, her heart pounded with the same adrenaline she'd felt that first night of discovery. Michael entered, his posture stiff, eyes full of uncertainty. He was a man who had everything to lose, and he knew it. The guilt radiated from him like a second skin. "Emma," he said softly, voice barely above a whisper. "Please, I didn't mean for any of this to happen." She crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "You didn't mean for it to happen?" Her voice was cold, cutting. "Do you really think I believe that?" Michael's face twisted with a mixture of guilt and frustration. "I was weak. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I never intended for you to find out." "Then why didn't you come clean when I asked you?" She fired back. "Why didn't you tell me the truth before it tore everything apart?" He stepped forward, desperation in his eyes. "I was scared, Emma. I thought I could fix it without losing everything. I never wanted to hurt you." Emma didn't move. "It's too late for apologies, Michael. The damage is done. It was never about fixing anything. It was about lying to me, over and over, while I stood there, thinking everything was fine." He reached out, almost pleading. "We can still make this work, Emma. I'll end things with Lauren. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Emma took a step back, her gaze icy. "You've already made your choice, Michael. You've already destroyed everything. You don't get to choose anymore." There was a long silence between them, broken only by the distant hum of the refrigerator. And then, Emma spoke again, her voice low and final. "You've been unfaithful to me, not just with Lauren, but with every lie you've told. This is the end." Michael's face crumpled, and for the first time, Emma felt a flicker of something she hadn't expected, pity. But it was too late for sympathy. She turned her back to him and walked toward the door. "You'll have to figure it out on your own," she said. "I'm done." The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal battles, accusations, and revelations. Emma filed for divorce, making it clear she would not tolerate any more lies. Michael, now fully exposed, was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. Lauren, after weeks of staying silent, was forced to face the consequences of her affair. She, too, was left in ruins. Her relationship with Michael was over, and the realization that Emma had orchestrated the entire thing broke her. The media caught wind of the story, the scandal of a man's infidelity, and the lengths a wife would go to expose the truth. The headlines were merciless, the gossip unforgiving. The pain Michael and Lauren felt was amplified by the public scrutiny. But Emma? She walked away from it all, alone, yes, but free. Her children remained with her. And while the divorce was painful, it was nothing compared to the emotional destruction she'd endured. Slowly, Emma rebuilt her life. She found a new purpose. She returned to the floral shop, working quietly, with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. She had reclaimed her life, piece by piece. And as she stood in the quiet of her new world, she understood the power of knowing when to fight and when to walk away.